here we go. Let's start by, I would invite you all to close your eyes for a moment, because much of this talk is about how much time we actually spend in our heads and looking at stuff, and we disconnect. At least I disconnect from my body. So I would like to invite you to put your feet square on the ground and sit straight and feel your weight on the chair. And just notice for a moment, what are you feeling? Do you feel anything? Do you feel comfort, discomfort, something? Really just anything. Sensations, emotions. Yeah, I'm feeling my weight on the chair, and I'm feeling a little palpitation of excitement, I think, in my heart. All right. Thank you for this moment. Come back at your own time. There we go. Now, a few fun facts about me. I'm an immigrant, first generation, father of 3 kids. I keep bees, and sometimes I get stung by them. That's why you see my little swollen eye here. It happened on Sunday, and I wasn't careful enough. I like sweets. I eat too many of them. I love sauna. I love soccer. I'm a beginning Christian, and so much more. Now, what I would like you to do as well during this talk at any time is ask a question when it comes up. Don't wait until the end. I find myself often wanting to ask a question, and then I don't even pay attention anymore what the person says. So please fire at will whenever there's anything that tickles you. I love to be in dialogue. The first question, though, I have is for you. Why did you take the time tonight to come? What is it that interests you? What would you like to hear about, or are worried or concerned about? I would love to hear from you before I start my light talk. Judy.
Well, so often when it comes to adolescents and teens and kids in general, it's kind of like you want to manage them and kind of keep them, at least teachers in school or institutional organizations, keep them in line. In the past, that's not myself, but I'm thinking of the general public. And your concept of a Wild Hearts Kids Club was when I first met you, it was just so enthralling to hear that. And I'm very, very interested in learning more about that. And of course, teens and screens and how we can go beyond them. So those are my 2 things. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Anything else from anyone? I know it's a little bit of an ambush, so I don't expect questions, but if they're here, Deb, is there something that wants to come out?
I'm just very interested in what your concept is, because, you know, I have another thing where I work with children from the PGA. There's 5 to 18, and there's so many things that happen with these kids, and I just am interested to see what your opinions are on how to work with them a little bit better, you know, when they come up, because there's so many different personalities and nationalities and things like that. So I'm curious to see. I'm interested in what you do.
Okay, awesome. That's very good. And please challenge me when I tell things that feel not hitting the mark. Ask again. It'll help me also get clearer on everything I do. So that's really a disclaimer. I don't have all the answers. I'm very committed on this path. I'm gaining experiences, but it's really a learning journey, also for me. So then, without further ado here, 3 things I want to ground us in, which is 3 things that I ground myself in my work, is compassion. Some of you might be parents, I am, and it can often happen that I forget self-compassion or compassion with my kids or the kids I work with. And if that goes away, everything else is for naught, my experience, and then there's no more connection and there's no more care. So let's be compassionate with ourselves. Very important, let's be humble. I just said I don't have all the answers, but I'm very curious. And I've learned a lot along the short way that I've traveled, and I will learn as long as I stay humble. I'm humble and curious. That's really the very big ingredient. And the third ingredient is care. So really what motivates me at the deepest level, I think, is really deep care about for the well-being of those around me, not just my own kids, and including myself. So compassion, humility, and care is what I want to invite into the space tonight. And this is the reason I'm here tonight, really. So you're looking at my three kids. Nia on the left, Lena in the middle, and Benny on the right. They're now 10, 12, and 14 years old. And I always wanted to be a dad. Always.
So
I knew that.
sweet.
Yeah. It's, yeah. They aren't they? I always wanted to be a dad. And when I had them, I still wanted to be that. I really, really enjoyed it. We went through some hard times as a family. There was a divorce and separation, and that required me to be really present to them and their well-being. That was 6 years ago. And at that time, I also got involved with deep inner work and really learned a lot about myself. One thing in particular I learned was that all the things I didn't like about my dad that I suffered under, like, let's say his lack of patience with me and a certain sense of judgment when I did things wrong, which led me to be like really careful and not trying new things. I was doing the same things to my kid when I started looking at myself in the mirror. I was doing the same things to them, and that really shocked me. And then I said to myself, no, not going to do that. And got curious about, okay, what is the best way to raise my kids, and what do I want for them? And what I want for them, probably many people want for their kids, is that they grow up to be who they really are. Like, I believe that every soul has a journey, has a gift, has a light, and it's the holiest of works as a parent to steward that and to nurture that and to encourage that, so that the children will become adults that believe in themselves, have the courage to try things and fail and get up again, and do that all with love. And so I have to embody all that, whatever I do. Otherwise, it's for naught. So here's a makeshift diagram. Might be incomplete, but the term of integrated human development is something that guides me in what I do. And the idea that we're not just our emotions, or not just our bodies, or not just our intellect, but we're all these things: our bodies, our intellect, our emotions, our relations, the spiritual influence, and our immersion in nature. All that makes us the social web, the natural web, and ourselves. And how to take care of all these things at the same time is a question I ask myself every day. I ask it with regards to me. Like, I have my blind spots, I might spend a little bit too much time on my somatic embodiment and like not enough time on my spiritual development, for example, and some things out of whack. And so I do my best to apply that same lens when I work with children, my own children and everybody else's. It's like, what do I see? What is off balance? How can I offer something that fits without being dominating or controlling, which is always from my ego and never from the kids' needs. Yeah. And in the best of worlds, if I have all these balls in the air and juggle them perfectly, then the kids that I work with and everybody that I touch, including myself, will be full of awe and wonder and creative and courageous and express myself authentically, which then leads to increased self-confidence and a feeling of fulfillment. That's the beautiful world that I want to contribute to. And it reminds me too, when I saw the first talk, Dr. Edith, when she spoke about luminous education, that kind of just hit home. And I guess, yes, that's exactly the vision and the ideal, to do all this here in community, to work with one another, to help one another become fully expressed on all these levels. So that's what guides me. Now, let me go back 3 years. We all remember the COVID lockdown situation, and I had 3 kids in school, 2 elementary school kids and 1 kid in middle school. And all of a sudden, they all got sent home and commandeered to sit in front of a screen 7 hours a day, more or less, and pay attention to a quacking teacher picture. And I saw what happened to my kids. I saw that nobody paid attention. I saw them literally like wither in their rooms and become pale and sad and just numb. And after the day of school was done, there was really nothing that they could want or feel. There was like a 2-hour revival was necessary to just get them back into their bodies and wake up from that trauma, really. I don't know if you have any experience with it, but it didn't work at all for my kids, and it didn't work for many kids, because the screen is not a full human experience. It's very limited. It drains the somatic, the emotional, the relational. It's completely mental at best, and even that, it doesn't do that well. So this is why I put this wave here. Like, there were screens in schools already before the lockdown, and I noticed that even my youngest had a Chromebook, and she had to do her stuff on the computer, and like, there's a lot of screens. And then when the lockdown came, it got even worse. Plus, what happened too is that during that time, the kids couldn't see their friends anymore. The kids wanted to see their friends though. So what to do? So what happened for many, many parents, including me, was that the kids went on a thing called Roblox. I don't know if you ever heard of that. It's a software company that offers a platform on which it is very easy to develop simple games, even complex games. But more importantly, anyone with an account can join any of these games. So what happened is that the friends joined the same games and played jump and run games or ball games or other types of games. And that became their social center point of the day. When can I play Roblox? And then it became an hour or 2 of Roblox sometimes, where they just sat in front of the screen, again, even more screens, but not knowing what to do else and being scared at the time, I let them go on Roblox. And so the kids, my kids at that time, were 6 and 8 and 10 years old. That is also very formative years. And for them, hanging out with friends became being on the screen together. That's something that I really had. It took me a while to understand that. It took me actually, I think, 2 years that it actually clicked that my kids and many others didn't grow up like I grew up in forests and trees, as you have heard before. A very big part of their world is screens. And that's normal. They don't know anything else, not to that extent. That's a very scary thought when it hit me at first. They don't even know how it feels like to be in the real world. And by the way, 3 years later, that's what my son tells me. My son is 14 now, has a long day in school, and he comes home, does his homework, more screens. And his favorite thing to do then is to hang out with friends, which means dialing into an online game and chatting over Discord. And that's his world. And I talked to him about these topics, and Benny, how about you do something outside of the screen? And he tells me, well, what would I do? I don't even know what to do. And it's not defiant. He just doesn't really know what else he could do. There's a few things he started engaging, but it took a while to wake him up to that. And so there is a real shift in our kids' minds through the exposure to screens towards, let's say, the metaverse, ultimately, where we all live in our screens. And if I go back real quick here, that doesn't take care of all our needs and who we really are in our brilliance. So there's a little space left here, and that means there's another space for a wave. So there's, of course, a bigger wave here even, and that is when kids start having their own devices. Yeah, it could be an iPad, it could be a computer, it could be an iPhone, another smartphone. That's when there is absolutely no time anymore to disconnect from the pull into the metaverse. I'm happy to say that my kids don't have phones. They have iPads they can use at home sometimes, but they don't have phones. and it is my resolve to not give them phones until they're 16 years old at least, because in the teenage years, that's when they're most vulnerable to influences that come from especially social media. So about a year ago, I started learning about the insidiousness of the social media algorithms. I'm not a social media user really, but when my kids started asking about, I want a phone and why do you want to be on Instagram and TikTok, it's like, what is that? Learning about these programs and apps was very revealing. There's an abyss that I had no idea exists. Where do I start? Privacy gets exploited. So the level to which the data of our kids get mined online is unbelievable. And not only on TikTok, by the way, also so-called edutech or edtech apps are full of data extraction programs that collect and sell your child's information to anyone who pays $1 for it. So there's a privacy issue. Of course, there's the inappropriate content and sexual predator issue that is very, very real. I saw a statistic the other day that like 12-year-old girls, I think 3 out of 4 have received inappropriate pictures at that time when they have a phone. 12-year-old girls. I'm like, what? I have a 12-year-old girl, and I get goosebumps when I just say that. And I have a 10-year-old too. So that's just no regulation, and there's no protection out there if they have access to social media. And then, of course, we probably heard about the addictive potential that these apps have too. So there is legions of the most brilliant minds in Silicon Valley employed. I learned the term. They're called attention engineers. They're specialized, blending psychology and technology to present information in a way that it triggers I think it's the dopamine cycle. So every time a hit comes, a bing comes, a new picture comes, the user gets a pleasant little release of dopamine, and once more. Those apps are just about keeping the eyeballs glued to the screen, no matter the cost, literally no matter the cost. And what that does best is dangerous content. Kids get presented with self-harm advice and other things like that. Yeah, it's upsetting. It's to say the least. So we have addictive potential, self-harm. The average American teenager. There was a study, I think 2 years ago, showed that the average teenager in America, in the US, spends between 7 and 8 hours a day online outside of school. Can you believe it? I can't believe it actually, but I believe it because it's a big study, and if anyone wants afterwards, I can point you to sources where you can look that up for yourself. There's a lot of studies about what that does, and well, what that really does is, if kids spend their school days in front of a screen and then their free time in front of a screen, then all they do is they live in screens, and they disconnect more and more from all that brilliance and holistic health that we are, and become passive consumers, reactive consumers to what's being presented in the service of keeping their attention, exploiting their data, their money. I mean, that happens too. Kids start paying money for better characters in their video games. Like my son does that. He spends his allowance sometimes in full on a better helicopter that doesn't even exist because it's just pixels on the screen. That's not rare. Many kids do that. There's a whole industry that targets it. So mounting issues. And I believe there is another talk scheduled with experts on the field of addiction around screens. So there will be more thorough information coming out on. I will pause this here. I have a few more thoughts. We can return to it later for sure. But I don't just want to paint the gloomy picture. Is there any question or comment at this point? I'll just a little pause before I move on and take a sip of water.
Manu, please.
Thank you. So just to comment on what you said, Sebastian. So in my household, My husband is an engineer, so he believes the children need to know these things. They need to understand it because it's important for their career, which I have often opposed. So I have older children now who are, definitely in charge of their own devices. And I do feed them here and there warnings, or for example, the other day we went into a restaurant, pardon me, and instead of a menu that you're given, there is a Q scan right in the middle of the table. And my son immediately whips out his phone and puts the scanner on. I'm like, what are you doing? You just gave away your information.
Yeah.
And then the answer is, I have nothing to hide. Yes. So they don't even understand, what this does. And, just want to say that into the round. Maybe somebody has a better answer than I have. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very good point. Does anyone want to respond to that before I do? No? So two things, Amanda. Thank you very much for that
Sebastian,
comment.
It looks like Beverly had a question.
Oh, I couldn't see that. Sorry.
That's okay. I was just going to say that that as far as tech, it just takes it's capturing your child. And I think one of the questions to ask kids today, because I don't think they have the answer, is what is privacy? Just to know what they would come up with.
Yeah. Thank you. To elaborate on that point, let me talk about that one first. So the topic of privacy, honestly, I would say that most adults don't really know why that matters. I could imagine many adults would give the same answer of like, I have nothing to hide. And then that's an excuse for convenience and just like doing what's being asked and not asking questions and not going out of our one way. And I don't even know the extent to my data being exposed on the internet. Just 2 weeks ago, I got a message that like 150 of my passwords were hacked. I don't even know how that works. Some data leak in some deposit of data. So there's somewhere out there is data about me that I don't even know exists. There are experts on this field that probably could tell scary stories. There's a researcher in San Jose that I spoke to 2 months ago. She focuses on that special field, and I remember I started shivering when I heard that maybe one stark example. I don't know if it will help you, Manu. It's a very particular case, but she told me that because so many kids now, there's a much higher level of mental, let's say, unwell-being, mental disease, anxiety, depression, loneliness, and it's skyrocketed since the pandemic lockdown measures. That's if it's not known here, that's a fact. It's really became evident that that's actually the real pandemic among our kids is this the mental health issue that comes from the isolation that they had to suffer. Now, what did tech do? Well, tech came up with like dozens of new companies that are designed to address children's mental health through an app. So now what they're rolling out with venture capital money into the world and into schools sometimes is apps that will be the companion of your child, and when the kid feels depressed or lonely, then that's where the kid can turn to and share this very, very intimate aspect of their lives with the app. And of course, these apps will mine that data and share it, because they all do, and that's extremely vulnerable information that can be exquisitely exploited by all kinds of vendors of products. So that's maybe one scary example that might help. I don't know. So I'll think of more if I have the ideas. Right now I don't have a better answer to that, Manu. And then the other point I think your husband making is not wrong. I do believe tech is useful. We speak about we use tech right now to speak with one another and to connect on a human level. So tech has its purpose. I'm an engineer myself by education, and you can't stop this, and there's no need. It can be used well, but unfortunately, the forces that stand behind most of the apps are not so benevolent. They don't have our best interest in mind, and that's the tragedy, and that's the reality. And so, can we come together and develop better tech? There are movements out there that actually focus on that. So there are some good-hearted engineers that band together and say, let's build good tech that serve humanity. It's the minority. Yeah. I saw you.
Sebastian,
Yes.
Yes, I have, I love what Beverly said about really involving your adolescent, your teen in a conversation about, what is privacy to you? And
Yeah.
I think that's, and I know, Sebastian, you have shared stories about really conversing with your children after they've been on the screens. How do you feel? And is that something that that feels good? And I think it gives us an opportunity to kind of what I like to call high touch, high tech. Tech's not going away. And if we can look at using the best of technology with the best of high touch communication, connection, and use it as an opportunity and a jumping off point for deeper conversation.
Yeah. It's a great segue into something I want to share later. Remind me, please, to talk about conversation with you, if I forget, because that goes directly to your point that you're making. Good. Let's look at a few more thoughts I brought, and then we can just open the conversation. Yeah, I had to show this picture because that's what tech does to my kids. It's like moth around a street lamp at night. They just can't stop. They just can't stop looking at it and putting it down. So that's the pull that I see in my own house, and that's where it's going in my worst nightmares. That's where we're headed if we don't intervene intelligently. And I think that word intelligently is very important. So it cannot be the wagging finger and saying the bad tech and you have to do less tech. I believe the more that's not new. The more we interdict something and forbid something, the more people will want to do it. That's very human, especially when they're teenagers. So the way cannot be to just forbid it because they will find ways. My own son, I installed, just one example, I installed a Google Mesh server in my house, believing that on a push of a button, I can switch off the internet and nobody will be able to use the internet anymore. I felt very, very prepared, very good on top of things. Internet goes off at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock, whatever it was, and my kids have to sleep. 3 months ago, my son told me, by the way, Dad, I hacked that thing. I don't know how they do it. He was 13 at the time. But somehow he managed to hack the Google security system to get into the internet whenever he wanted, even late at night. So there can never be a way to just forbid it because they will find ways to get through. What really moves me is the question, what can we create together that is more attractive than the screens? That's really, really my topic. So I think we can all agree that we want less of screen time in all forms, and we want more things, the green arrow that brings up the parts that I showed before, our embodiment, our attunement to our senses, our emotions, our wisdom, intuition, our relationships, human relationships, and experience ourselves in the world, in real experiences that let us grow. Because in the internet, it's all fake. They don't build real confidence there. It's a house of cards. And so how to do that? And these are just a few like logos of organizations, and there's many, many, many more that do really good work in trying to support parents and schools and students. One of them is the Center for Humane Technology that has a lot of information around all the harms that the social media does. So there's this thing called Ledger of Harms. It's scary to look through. Those people were the ones that made that movie, The Social Dilemma. Maybe some of you have seen it. It's a very worthwhile movie watching, and they did that. There is the Screen Time Action Network, in which I volunteer as well, that brings people together nationwide, shares information, studies. There's work groups. You can really meet people and start working with one another around mental health, screens in schools. And they have a big library of resources in which you find even more articles and videos and inspiration. So there's a lot of information out there. Most of it, though, is you have to go there and you have to find it and you have to read it and then you have to apply it. And it's kind of challenging for most people to do that and to stay on top of that and to consume the information and then to use it, because they don't really tell you how to do that. And nobody's there to hold your hand, and you cannot do it with anyone else. So as important as it is to have those resources, they also fall short in some ways. And so there's also a case to be made for programs that involve people more directly. And one that I would, or two that I would like to point out real quick, is Let Grow and Conversation. So Let Grow is Lenore Skenazy's organization, and she got a little famous about 10 years ago being America's worst mom. Maybe you have heard of her. She let her kid ride the subway in New York City by herself, and it was 10 years old, and people got scared, but the kid was very proud. And so she makes the case of kids need independence, kids need agency, kids need to make their own experiences, because we micromanage them to an extent that we squish their agency, their self-confidence, and they grow up to be passive, scared, compliant robots that don't know what to do with themselves. And that's a trend the last 20 years. We all grew up differently. We all were kicked out of the house, come back when the street lights come on, and we were free to do things. The world is safer today than it was when we were kicked out of the house, but parents believe the world is not safer. And so they guard their kids, lock them at home. And so Let Grow works in the opposite direction, reach out to schools, encourages schools to let kids just play freely. Look it up on your own. It's a fantastic program. I've worked with her a little bit, and it works. The stuff works. And then the other thing I just recently discovered is an organization called Conversation, and it is conversation and relation together makes Conversation. And what Conversation has developed over the last 7 years is a series of, it looks like high gloss magazines covering all aspects of screens. Addiction is one of them. Privacy is another one. And I think they have a dozen of them, and they add more continuously. And there's a whole program built around it. So what you receive when you participate is the magazine-y thing that has a link to a video that is fun and engaging and that talks about one of those, let's say privacy, for example, and highlights certain aspects and educates. And the kids are supposed to watch that in school with one another. And then there's questions, Socratic questions that open up a conversation. And then the kids start talking about their experience with, for example, privacy, helped by this magazine and this little video. And from what I heard from the founders last week is the conversations are really rich. The kids love to talk about it. They just don't know how to. And such a program helps them to come out of their shell. And the best part is, after the 15-minute exercise is over, the kids get little cards with the same link to the video and the same questions. Take that home, watch the video with the parents, and have the same conversation with their parents. So suddenly, parents and kids have a way to talk about these topics that they don't know how to talk about. I'm waiting for my own kit. It should arrive in the mail tomorrow or the day after, and I'm going to use it with my kids to see if I can have an even better conversation with them about screens. So I'm hopeful for that. And then also, Deb, finally, I'm going to talk about your question from the beginning, the Wild Hearts Kids Club. I put this on the screen as well. By the way, do you hear the drumming in the background? Good. I'm in the dojo here,
No.
and the taiko people just started drumming. I'm glad that you're not hearing this. Okay. I'm hearing it. It's really loud. So the Wild Hearts Kids Club, how did that come to be? It was in August 2021, after 2 years of crazy lockdowns and my kids going bonkers, jumping up and down the wall. I had experimented at my own house with things like Nerf battles. Like I bought a bunch of Nerf guns and we started having parties in the garden and we invited friends and we had the best of times. And we had bruises and we got shot in the head, but it was no problem. I never saw them happier than in those moments where they started just running around in real life, not just sitting on their screens. And that gave me inspiration. And then I thought, okay, look, this is what my kids really need. This is what all kids really need. What can I do? I just can't sit still and stand by and wait until they all fall to zombies completely. So in this very dojo that I am right now, I'm a student and assistant instructor in a beautiful Aikido dojo here in San Mateo, that was completely deserted during the lockdown measures. Nobody came to class anymore because they were all afraid of COVID. But I had a key. So I thought, what if I just go in the dojo, bring all the Nerf guns, invite all the kids, even if it rains, and we have regular playdates and come together. And so I was at that time immersed in the freedom community. And I put the word out like, hey, who wants to meet at the dojo on Sunday for 2 hours and we're just going to play Nerf? And people say, wow, let's do it. And suddenly we had 4 kids, 6 kids, 8 kids, 12 kids. And the rule is really simple. Wear your protective glasses so you don't get hurt, don't get hit in the eye. Everything else, have fun, be wild, be loud. And kids know how to do that. They know how to be wild and loud. They don't need instructions for that. And it was such a joy to do that. And so I said, I'm onto something here. And I added regular, I call it the Wild Hearts Playdates. And the Wild Hearts Playdates took place also in this dojo space. And there were weekly, sometimes twice a week occurrences of 2 hours where I put on some engaging music, and I had big yoga balls, and I had hula rings, and I had these ribbons that, you know, you can use to like make swirls in the air, all colors, ropes and blocks. And I put it all out there, and then the kids came and said, kids, only one rule, no hurting one another. If you do that, you got to take out a timeout. Other than that, this is your space. Do what you want. And they looked like, really? Like, yes, go. And so they started going, and they started building forts, and then they tore it down, and then they attacked me, then they attacked each other, friendly. They started playing things like tag and hide and go seek that they couldn't do at home because there was nobody there. And they just did that. And time went by like this, and everybody had the biggest smiles, and the parents had the biggest smiles. And I had the biggest smile. I was like, this is great. So I did that for like a year and had a consistent following of kids between, this works best for kids like 5 through 10. I would say older kids, they need a little bit more engagement. They like the Nerf battles more. And so after that ran, I had one more idea, which was like, well, what about nature? And what about true adventure? And I said, well, we live in one of the most beautiful areas on the planet here, and all we do is spend time indoors. No, let's change that. So I started offering what I called outdoor adventures. That's the name is the program. So I would pick kids up from school and drive them to a location in the Bay Area that is has some beautiful nature to offer. For example, San Bruno Mountain. Maybe you have been there. Not all of you might be from the area. So it's a mountain with forests and flowers, and it has the highest peak on the peninsula. So you'd actually, if you go up there, you see a whole big grand view that is quite spectacular. And so the recipe for my outdoor adventures, and I did about 24 different ones over the course of a year. The recipe is always drive them, not too long, 20 minutes is kind of the max time. Let them just talk amongst themselves, ask them a few questions when they're too quiet, and let them just be foolish and silly with each other because they can't do that in school. So let that energy come out. Once you get to the location, see if they have a natural instinct, what they want to do, and then let them take over. So I had a program plan, but I always said, kids, you are a boss here. If you want to do something that I don't think of, just take over. Just tell me and you can do it. So they would sometimes just explore a little corner, but then they got curious, what do you have prepared for us, Sebastian? So they wanted to know. And I always made an effort because that's what I like. So that's my style. Always thought of what would be really wacky and fun to do in this location. So for example, San Bruno Mountain has a parking lot at the foot of the highest peak. And officially, you cannot drive a car up there. Only if you're like a special government person, you can open the gate and drive up there. But there's a road. There's a road that goes all the way up. So I thought, okay, what if I get a bunch of scooters for kids, bring my own heavy electric scooter, bring a rope, tie them all together, and then fly up that mountain so the kids get to like just woo, go up. And we did that. And the first time was a very foggy and stormy day. So the kids were actually like half scared and half excited, but they loved it. So we flew up that thing, we stood on top and was like, wow, awesome, we're here. And then we took the way down again. And that's kind of the surprising element that they didn't expect, and that kind of like, it's always very joyful for them. Another example was I went to a thing called the Pulgas Water Temple. It's a little park with looks like a Greek temple with a nice water basin that is used for wedding pictures and stuff like that. So I took them there, and first they got to shoot some bow and arrows, harmless, so no real ones, just toy ones, of course, and they made up their own games actually. But then they wanted to know, what is the program that I had thought of? So I threw out a bunch of cardboard boxes and tape. Said, okay, you have to build a boat now. Each of you builds a boat, and you have to cross that lake. And if it sinks, too bad. And put little Lego figures into the boat. So they built little boats, and they had the best of times, just like cutting and taping and like decorating and painting on their boats, shoe boxes more or less. And then the Lego figure came on top, and then like throw them in that thing in the pond, and it was, will it make it? Will it sink? Which one is fastest? Cost me almost nothing, but they had so much fun, and all the boats sank in the end. Nobody really won. It's fine. That's not the point. But the point was that we just had fun. It wasn't so serious. I think the element of, it's not that serious. Let's have some fun. Let's stretch some boundaries. Yes, most people that come here to be serene and take pictures of their wedding day, well, but we're gonna sink some boats in the pond, and it's gonna be great. So I had the sense that kids in the lockdowns got really scared to like not do the wrong thing. Everything is dangerous out there. So doing things that are a little bit on the edge, but still safe-ish, that's kind of the antidote, I thought, to let them just experience, well, there's more than I know out here. Maybe a last example is, and cut me off when I give too many examples. There's a park close by here called Stulsef Park that is in the middle of the Bay Area, but it looks like a wild canyon. It is a little canyon, and it's steep, and it has path on top and it has path on the bottom. So I took the kids there, and I had a big box with me, and they didn't know what was in there. But I said, the box is, we have to carry the box wherever we go. It's our treasure. Oh, okay, you'll see why. So we went the upper path, and then there was a spot where you come to an opening and you look down about, I would say 50 feet max, like a pretty steep 50 feet drop down to the creek. And I said, okay, guys, we're going to go down here. We're not going to walk around. We're going to like, what's the word? Rappel off here. So I had a very big rope, and I tied it on top of a sturdy tree. I said, okay, I'm going to go first, and then you're all going to follow me. And I tossed the box down. The box went down in the creek. So now we have to get the box. We can't go back. And they go, what, really? Like, yeah. And so I went first, and then they like slowly like held on. And I always knew if they fell, I would catch them because I had been there before and I had tried it myself. So without the kids. And so I let the kids get their courage together and like rappel down this dangerous canyon. And it took us 7-8 minutes, and we all were down, and they were like, wow, I just rappelled down this gigantic canyon. And the biggest danger was that they would fall and scrape their butt a little bit and have dirty pants, which I was willing to take that risk. And they all loved it. We added a few more things after that adventure, but that's another thing of throwing in a surprise that they don't expect, that takes them out of what they know, and requires a little bit of courage or creativity or both, and leaves them with like, wow, that was cool. I did that. So that's what I have done about 24 times. Some of my adventures are more exciting than others. I'm trying new things regularly. Next week, for the first time, I'm going to have like a whole week, like 5 adventures in a row, where I'll see how that goes. So that's what the Wild Hearts Kids Club is about, Deb. And Deb and everyone, but Deb asked me before.
Sebastian.
Yeah.
That I really like that you brought up that point of how kids need to get scared, because you're right. The lockdown pretty much set them up to be waiting, and that the system was pretty much setting up that you have to wait for us to tell you what to do and what to hook up to, and don't use any self-empowerment. And they were losing that. They were I think a lot of them did lose that idea that you could take it to the edge and and leap and be okay and self-empower, and that you did it on your own, you survived, you critically thought, you know, it through, or you fell and you got up, or you got hurt and you made it. But
And you
that's
come,
what the whole
yes,
lockdown was telling all the kids. You can't do anything. You don't have any self-empowerment. Not only that, you need to hook up to what we're, you know, dosing
yeah,
out. So I think that that was a really good point to really have kids on that line where they need to like really find that. And yeah, I could totally see how you know, taking the kids out, and especially in nature, I mean, that
yeah,
almost just always kind of gels kids, but to take them then into those little fearful places that
yes.
and that's what they want to do at that age, right? They want to push
Yeah.
the boundaries. So yeah, that's amazing. That's good.
I love how you say that, because it actually gives words to what I don't think I really had words for, which is what the lockdowns did to most of us, is teach us that safety is first. There's nothing more important than to be safe, but without context of what does it mean to be alive. So safety meaning 3 masks and 10 vaccines and locking yourself in your closet, don't see anyone. That's safe to the max, but it's not, because you're not even alive anymore.
Yeah.
It's
Not mentally safe.
it's not healthy, and it's a perverted form of safety. Safety has to always be relative and not just absolute. And that's what the kids got told, that safety is absolute. And so really the way you said it, it's true that I deliberately went against that. It's like safety is not the highest good here. To be alive is the highest good. And so how does that feel? Well, you have to have a little tickle. If there's no tickle, you're not alive. Then you'd be safe, but you're kind of dead, you know? As they say, ships in the harbor are safe, but then ships are not built to be in harbors. They're built to be on the seas. And I really believe that. If we don't venture out on the sea, well, then we might as well die today, because like, why are we even here? And so thank you very much, Beverly, for giving words to what I was talking
Well,
about.
thank you, because it actually also made me have that, you know, be able to see that that is so needed at this time. So thank you also.
Yeah.
And Manu?
Thank you. So Sebastian, yeah, that all sounds awesome. And can you have a club like this for parents? I want to go down the road too.
You know,
And that
That's
and
cute.
that is my segue into my comment is it, you know what, it starts with the parents. So you took the initiative. And what I find difficult is when your partner, your spouse, you know, does not see it the same way. So you're giving information here, but then they get the opposite information there, and reinforcement. So it also is sort of on the adult side, you know, how
yeah,
to mitigate our own use. Our, you know, for
yeah,
me, it's sort of like be aware of my own use. And for example, when somebody walks in the room, but I'm in the video, I'm just really into it, you know, and it's to stop and be present. So it's just also this own self-awareness. Just want to make that comment.
Oh, 100%, Manu. You have no idea. You have no idea that my next slide talks about exactly that. So maybe you had an idea, but I really agree. If there's one thing that I learned in the last 1.5 years that I've did this, is that I can only do so much. I create the adventures, I create the play dates, and the kids come, and the parents sit on the side and they watch and they talk, or they're on their phones for 2 hours, and then they take the kids back home. And we all know that whatever I create in an hour or two will not weigh as close, even close to what the weight is of the home environment. If the home environment is totally different, well, then it doesn't almost not matter what I do. So of course we have to reach the parents, to involve the parents. And I've just started to open my own mind towards that. But I believe that is the way forward, honestly. So actually, I think it goes into 2 directions. So one, and I have a big smile on my face when I talk about that. One, it goes back to Burning Man too. Burning Man is Not a good place for many, many reasons, but there is some good elements in it, which is the permission to play and to be really silly and to do outrageous things that not take yourself too seriously. That is something that I believe adults need a lot too. I just read yesterday that the average kid smiles 400 times a day. 400 times. The average happy adult smiles 40 times a day. And the average normal adult smiles 20 times a day. So it's a big difference. And here's why I mentioned this with the adults. We had one of the last playdates I did, I think in January, was not many kids. We had just 3 kids. And it's hard to play many games when you only have 3 kids. For some reason, I think one of the kids said, "Can my mommy play too?" And I said, "You know what? That's a good idea." So I said, "Parents, want to play? Come on the mat." And they said, "Why not?" Suddenly we had 6 people, 3 parents, 3 kids, and myself, and we played together. You should have seen the faces of the parents playing tag. They were kids again. They were smiling again. They were running. They were falling. They had the best of times. So
I love that.
Yes. And I replicated that the other day in the Aikido dojo in the kids class. We always play games in the end. And we played a game of dodgeball and said, "Okay, round number 1 done. Round number 2, parents, everybody come." They were surprised, but they came and it was a riot. The kids loved it. Hitting their parents, winning against their parents. It was the best. And the parents loved it. And so there is something there about helping adults reconnect to their inner child, helping them play again. And I yet have to start the first event that does that, but we need that because we all want to play. We don't get enough play, and play opens us up to joy and to the freedom of that, and creates something in common with our kids too. So that is a big thing for me to try next, and I haven't done it yet. So that was the one. And what was the other? Oh yeah, the other one, I want to talk about the other one too. Let's see, check on time. We are like almost an hour in. Do we have a little bit more time, everybody? Yeah?
Yes, please,
Okay.
Sebastian.
So there's another thing that developed late last fall, and it had to do with the Children's Health Defense Network, actually. There was a group of parents that organized a teen event to bring the teens together out of isolation, because there's not much out there for teens. More for small kids, not for teens. And those are the most vulnerable, so they need something. So there was a first event at a beautiful home, and there were like 20 teens and lots of adults trying to do something with the teens that they would like. It was a great start. We all felt there's something there, but what do we do next? And I was there and I thought, well, these Nerf battles that I do with small kids, we could try that with bigger kids, because I like Nerf battles and I'm much older. So we floated the idea, and 22 people signed up, 22 teens signed up for the first Nerf battle that we had, I think in January. And I just gave them the whole space here, like, here are all the guns, all the obstacles, you do what you want to do. And they created the most spectacular games, and they've fought and laughed and had the best of times for about 90 minutes. Then they got tired, then we had dinner together, and then they went home and they want to do it again. So we did it 2 more times, and we're going to continue it because they asked for it. Like, this is a great place where they get to determine the rules, they get to define how things are going, and they come together and they have time to hang out with each other. And the phones stay off. I know these kids have phones, but they stay off while they play, and they don't need them. There's other people like Cole, my friend Cole in San Francisco. She does the same kind of format for a pool party. She happens to have access to a nice pool. Every month she opens it up, and the teens come and they play pool games and they eat pizza and they chat and they love it. And so we're going to continue that as well. And then we want to sprinkle in things like, how about a cooking event? How about a beach day where we all go to the beach? Or how about you teens organize your own event and we just support if we have to, but take leadership, take initiative, do something with it. And so this is really where I have a lot of enthusiasm. There's lots of parents that want to connect and help one another, create stuff that the teens will love. And so this is really also an invitation for anyone here that either wants to work on this with me or with others, or knows people that wants to work on that. The more we come together, the more we can create for one another. I connected over the Screen Time Action Network. I connected to 2 moms in Marin County, which is about an hour north of here, who have the same situation. They are in their school. They try to combat all the screen time that is being pushed onto the students. And they think about what can we do to get them off the screens. So we're connecting now, but I share my ideas. They share their ideas. They recommend you could go here. There's a great beach that I don't know. So I can have adventures there. They want to come do a Nerf battle in the dojo here. So supporting one another with creativity, with whatever is needed, even hosting one another, build relationships. That's all real life experience that I believe it's not that hard if we take a little bit of time to connect with each other. And then that multiplies every individual. That no matter how much creativity I have, it doesn't matter if I'm by myself.
Mm-hmm. Sebastian, we had an event here in Santa Monica. Beverly was involved. We had several kids. We had like 12 kids that came, and it was the same thing. It was very interesting because the first day was on the beach, and we had a breakout session. I mean, a icebreaker session. And we have a friend who is a comedian, stand-up comedian, and we had another friend who is a hooper.
A what?
A hooper, a hula hoop person.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and she does it everywhere, and she's very, very good at it. But my opinion was, when we were there, I was really concerned because none of these kids really knew each other. And it was like, you know, how they sit there and they look around and go, oh gosh, this is really going to be horrible. You wouldn't have believed it. It was so incredible. They spent 2 hours hooping after Kathy they were best of friends. Then we took them to this studio that we have close by that has one of the finest sound rooms and music centers in it. And they created a video put the songs and music to it about the Constitution. I mean, it was incredible. And these kids,
Wow.
Beverly's daughter was there, and a couple of friends of hers came as well. And we got the most amazing testimonials from these kids. They said and then we had a prom for them because they weren't able to do it at the high schools because of the vaccine.
Yeah.
And it was an incredible experience for me, because I just was really kind of concerned that it was going to be a flop, but it ended up being really great.
That's so amazing. I'm so excited to hear that.
Yeah,
because it shows
fun.
the same ingredients work everywhere. We had actually a feedback session with the teens 4 weeks ago, asking, okay, guys, we had like these 4 or 5 events now. We want to hear from you. Do you like it? What do you like more? What works best? What can be better? And well, 3 teens showed up. Not a lot, but at least 3. And so a couple of things I learned that I didn't know before. Like, one was, to my surprise, they said smaller events are better.
Oh.
12 to 15, not more, because if it's too many people, then most teens will feel intimidated and timid and will only hang with the people they already know.
It's cliquish, yeah.
It's cliquish, but if it's small enough, then they connect with other people. And that's a duh. Okay, I asked my kids, is that true? I said, of course. What do you think? So to your point, it was small. That was probably a blessing that it was small.
They had their own time. We couldn't have had many more kids, right, Judy? We couldn't have, because it was, what they were doing, each were going in, and what we did was ask them what they were interested in. Did they want to do the camera work? Did they want to do the sound work?
Yeah, very good.
It was, we'll send you the video. They made a video, and it's fabulous. It's really great.
I also, so please, I didn't mean to interrupt. Were you complete?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I was.
No, okay. There was one more thing that we learned from that feedback session, which, they said, we do like program, we do like structure, but not too much, please. Have something for us to do, but then give us enough time so we can just hang with each other without structure, which makes it easier on us, actually, but I wasn't clear that that's actually better. And I don't have to think everything through. If you have a program like yours, Deb, that's a special occasion, but I think there's something to say about, like, keep it simple, let them just have free space together. That does some magic in itself. And I'm going to follow up with you, Deb, if you allow, because something tickles me in inviting your teens to come to the Bay Area and do something for them here, and maybe bring our teens down there on a trip and experience Santa Monica.
That would be fabulous. That would be really great.
And here is my very last slide, then, and I'm going to be done, I promise, is my kids can't do the summer camps they want to do because they still request vaccination, believe it or not. It's unbelievable. And so that sucks a lot. I mean, it's wrong on many levels, but I'm also done with feeling bad about it and do nothing about it. And Manu, if she's still on, she gave me the idea of like, hey, why don't we do something? Why don't we create something for our teens? Why don't we create awesome summer camps that you can't get anywhere out there, that are free, and so they actually are not deprived of the punishment that society wants to put on them? That's really an open question that I'm throwing into the round as well. We could organize trips. We could start small events, trips, or a whole camp that blows them, out of the water with like, wow, that was amazing. Meeting new people, which is what they want. And maybe there's something that we can start for a large part of the population that suffers the same situation. Yeah.
That'd be wonderful. Yeah,
Let's
we
take
need to
questions
think
about
about that.
Because so many cool things in LA and Santa Monica that we would be in awe about experiencing. And we know a few things that
Any questions or comments? I wanted to let you know about our next talk that's coming on the 18th of April with Lainey Liberty, transformational mentoring for teens. And on May 7th, meeting teens where they are with Leon Campbell Jr. from Agape Live. Sebastian, are you unfrozen? I just started talking since you were.
No, that was the right way. That's how to cut me off. I talked enough today, I think.
No, you didn't. It was wonderful. I loved it. I loved it. It's from the heart. It's real. It's practical. It's true. And it's relational. So I knew it was going to be fantastic. And thank you, everybody, for coming. Sebastian, how can people get in touch with you and learn more about Wild Heart Kids Club?
So yeah, there's a website that I have, and I also have a phone number and an email. You can just write to me. I'll put it all in the chat if you want.
Awesome.
And then we can connect that way. I saw your comment, Joseph, as well, and I'm curious to hear what I'm always looking for. Can I connect to people that want to do something cool, and what can we do together? Like Deb, Joseph, anyone else will say, but I'm feeling there might be something, and that excites me.
Yeah.
So here's the website, and this is the email, and here is my phone number. Text me, because if I don't know your number, my phone will send you to the mailbox.
Yeah, I have that.
You have that too, right?
Yeah, I have it.
Well, Sebastian, I look forward to meeting you in person, because I've gotten to know you via Zooms, and I'm ready for a real live in-person experience. Perhaps we'll do something here in the summer or later, and of course come to Northern California as well. Does anybody else have anything to add before we say aloha, and hopefully see you in 2 weeks, April 18th, Lainey Liberty.
Shout out.
And there's Joseph. Hi, Joseph.
I came in late. I'm sorry I couldn't make it earlier, but Judy and Sebastian, I love what you're doing here, and would be happy to connect offline too, because I come from an education background. I used to teach math and physics, and while I'm not teaching now, I think education is still a big passion of mine, especially where there's such a need right now for community, for education to be kind of reimagined and make it fun again. So I love what you're doing. I'm going to go back.
We should talk, Joseph.